Walter Trout, it's great to hear that we're going to have you back down in Australia again.
I am excited to get back. I really am.
Yeah, when would have been the first time? I know I went to a canned heat show at Billboard in Melbourne in around 1981, 1982. You would have been.
Then I was there.
Yeah. Was that your first time?
That was my first time coming to Australia, was with Canned Heat, yes.
Yeah. So playing at that nightclub right in the center of Melbourne.
Yes, and we used to stay in St. Kilda. I think I'm trying to remember if it was called the Diplomat Hotel, but
oh yeah, I think there was a Diplomat back in the 80s.
And we stayed at the Diplomat, and we would be there for like a month at a time, and we would commute to gigs around the area. And back then I was young, single, I was drinking and drugging, and man, did I have a great time in St. Kilda, let me tell you.
So
came out of it needing a liver transplant, you know?
Yep. That is party town.
Yeah.
And still
is. Pretty seedy back then, but it was a lot of fun.
With the show itself, you've always been one to release a lot of new music. We never go seemingly 2 or 3 years without a new Walter Trout album. And you've been back in the studio again, haven't you? Will you have the new album ready by the time you get to Australia?
Here's the thing. Just yesterday, I finished my 31st album.
Wow.
I sang the last song. I sang some harmonies on 2 other songs. Those songs were mixed last night, and today, as we speak, right now, it is being mastered.
Wow.
But it is not, and I have a photo session in 2 days to take the album cover. But unfortunately, it's not going to come out until February. So I cannot be doing the new songs until the album comes out, or now because they end up on YouTube, live version. So we will be concentrating on Ride and Ordinary Madness and my last couple albums, and also we'll be doing some songs from my past. This is my 31st album, so I have a lot to choose from.
Yeah.
And you said new music. I've had my own band now for 34 years. This is my 31st album. And I had 2 years off because I was, in the hospital and just about dead. But other than that, I've done an album every year.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like you to not bring the studio into the hospital. We were expecting a Walter Trout Live from the Hospital album, and
there we go.
It never turned out. Yeah. But it must be exciting for your fans when they come to a show with the new music as you do, with the Ride album, for instance. I think there was a cluster of 4 songs in a row that I've seen at certain shows. Ride, Ghosts, Follow You Back Home, Say Goodbye to the Blues, all popping up seemingly, back to back. So, when somebody comes to a Walter Trout show, they're actually getting a different experience from the previous tour, aren't they?
They are. And also I have to say that we like to play spontaneously. I don't want to come out and play songs by rote and just do the same thing every night. And I like to think of it that I have such great players that my songs are vehicles for us really to jam on. And every night we try to take them to a new place, something different. What can we find here that we didn't find last night on these tunes? And I'm bringing some amazing players this time with me. And I think we're going to blow some minds down there. I've got some killer guys coming with me.
Wow. Who is on the way down?
Well, it's my longtime drummer, Mike Leisure, who's been with me 16 years, who's a powerhouse. But on bass, this time I'm going to have John Avila, who comes out of a legendary LA band called Oingo Boingo, if you remember them, with Danny Elfman.
Yeah.
But he's also toured and recorded with people like Steve Vai, Neil Young, Bob Dylan. He's great. And on keyboards, I'm going to have Richard T. Bear, who is a compadre and partner of Stephen Stills, and who toured for a long time with Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and a lot of other people. He's a kind of a legendary dude. And he's not really a side man. He makes his own records, and he's written hit songs for lots of other people, but he's a great keyboard player, and he was kind of sitting at home, and I'm like, you want to go on the road and play my stuff? And he's like, yeah, beats sitting around in LA and doing sessions. So that's who I'm bringing. And then I'm going to have my son, John,
Wow,
playing guitar with us. And I don't know if you've ever heard him, but he's a master.
mm. The passing of the torch.
Yes.
Does it?
Yeah.
Does he inherit the band in the will?
I don't know if he'd want my band. He's 30 years old. I don't know if he wants to deal with a bunch of 70-year-olds. He's got his own guys he likes jamming with when he's not with me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got these guys coming along and learning from you and all the experience that you've had, but I'm absolutely gobsmacked by the masters that you worked with back in the day. John Lee Hooker and Big Mama Thornton, Percy Mayfield.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these people have passed away 40 years ago. I think John Lee Hooker was probably the most recent there, with about 2001. But like Big Mama Thornton and Percy Mayfield, Big Mama Thornton, the original Hound Dog singer,
and Ball and Chain too, that was covered by Janis Joplin.
Yeah, and Percy, who wrote "Hit the Road, Jack," and Somebody to Love. I mean,
Percy was a trip, man.
Yeah.
That guy, some of these characters you're naming, and along with them, I played with Bo Diddley and Lowell Folsom and Eddie Cleanhead Vincent. And I can't remember them all, actually. Those guys were an education, but not just in music, in how to be sociable and how to be on the road and survive it, and how to live your life as a musician. Playing with somebody like John Lee Hooker, who had a career when I was with him, he'd already had a career for 60 or 70 years, I mean, these guys just had an aura about them. Same with Big Mama, and there's a story I like to tell about Big Mama. I mean, I had just moved out here to LA. I was, I think, 22, and I got the gig. You want to go play a gig with Big Mama Thornton? Like, yeah, sure. Oh, of course I do. I just came from a little farm town in New Jersey, right? And I show up. We're not going to rehearse. And I'm the only vanilla fella, and I'm the only guy under 60 years old in the dressing room, and I'm kind of nervous, and oh man. And I trying to make conversation, and I said, hey, Mama, what are we going to play tonight? We're not rehearsing. I'm just supposed to play. What are we going to play? And she said to me, all you got to do is play like B.B. King. And then she goes, I don't want to hear no psychedelic. I don't want to hear no rock and roll. I go, okay, you got it. We're out on stage and we're playing a slow blues. And she goes, ladies and gentlemen, right now, the boy over here is going to try to play like B.B. King. They were just a trip, man, these guys. I loved them. I had a great time. There was no money in it. I was actually, for a lot of that period that I was playing with those people, I was working a day job in Costa Mesa, California, in a warehouse that I was packing plastic bags. I'd count 10 plastic bags. I'd put that in a bigger bag and I'd throw that into a bucket. And I did that 8 hours a day. And then I'd drive off to play with John Lee Hooker, And, but man, it was, I look back on it like one of the golden periods of my life.
Oh yeah, what an education! And you must have a sense of how your son feels being in your band then, because you were literally around that age when you were doing all that with these greats.
Yeah. And then, I was with John Lee Hooker when I got heard by Canned Heat, and they invited me to join them, and I ended up with them for almost 5 years. And we did 3 concerts opening for John Mayall. He had put the original Blues Breakers back together with Mick Taylor, John McVie, and Colin Allen. I think this was around 1981 or 82. And we opened up, and John Mayall came up and befriended me, and I love your playing, and we hit it off immediately. And he said, well, what's Canned Heat doing now? And I said, well, we got a couple of months off. And he said, well, come on out on the road. I want to hear you play rhythm guitar for Mick Taylor.
Wow.
So there I was, a kid, and I was playing with the original Blues Breakers. It was unbelievable,
Yeah. I mean, when I think about the Blues Breakers and the people who had their education going through that band, people like Eric Clapton, for instance, Mick Fleetwood, I think, was in Blues Breakers,
yes,
wasn't he? Peter Green,
Mick Taylor, Ainsley Dunbar, Keith Hartley, Andy Fraser, and Simon Kirke, who went on to be with Free and Bad Company. They started with John Mayall. The list is amazing of people that started with Mr. Mayall. And an interesting story with him was one of the ways before the internet, and you're a kid and you're 14 and you want to learn guitar, the way you did it back in the mid 60s was you got the vinyl album, you put the guitar solo on, you listened to it 15 times, and you sat with your guitar. And then if you wanted, you slowed it down from 33, you slowed it down to 16, and that cut it in half. And a fast run, then you could hear the notes. Then you sat down and figured it out. Well, I studied the Eric Clapton, John Mayall album, the Clapton album that John did with Eric Clapton, the Blues Breakers album. I studied it. And the first night with John Mayall, after he hired, after I did those gigs with the original Blues Breakers, I was playing rhythm. But then he started a new Blues Breakers, and it was me and Coco Montoya on guitar. And the first night, I came out and I played the Eric Clapton solos note for note. No, I thought that's what he wanted. I felt there was a tradition there that I had to honor. So I played the solos note for note. He came to my room and said, Walter, if I'd have wanted Eric Clapton, I'd have hired him. I hired you because I like the way you play, and I want you to play those songs your way. And he freed me. I was free then. And man, I just took off.
Wow. So was that the magic of the education of John Mayall, that you could come in, as all of these people did, as unknowns, learn something in that time, and come out and do whatever you needed to do on your own?
Well, that's what he does. He nurtures you, he develops you, he teaches you, and you either go solo, or once you're in John's band, if you're a blues guitarist, you're at the pinnacle of being a sideman. You either go back down, you get a lesser gig, or you go solo.
Yeah.
And that's what so many of them did, right?
Including yourself. That's when Walter Trout band started.
Yeah. Yeah, he developed me. He taught me how to play on big stages. He taught me how to play spontaneous. I mean, with Mayall, I remember being at Royal Festival Hall in London, this gigantic symphony orchestra hall. And we're in the middle of the set, and John turns around and goes, key is C, and he counts to 4. And you better know the vernacular, and you better know how to jam with these other guys, because I learned how to play spontaneous,
So when you do your shows, and anyone can turn up at one of your shows, it could be Mick Taylor, it could be Billy Gibbons. When they get up on stage with you and you're playing and they're playing, do you play as a team, or is it a bit of a footy match where you're having a bit of a...
No, you have to play as a team. There
Yeah.
has to be mutual respect. That whole thing about competition among musicians, I do not ascribe to that. I find that really distasteful. Once people have achieved a certain level of mastery of their art, they should be respected for what they have and who they are. And as long as they give the mutual respect back, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing, you know. I've had Mick Taylor on stage with us, and we're like best buddies, and the same with Billy Gibbons, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's been like 42 years since you first came down here, so you know our country well. We look forward to seeing you every time you come down here. There's been some big shows. There's been Blues Fest. There's been your own tours, the Canned Heat one, as we discussed earlier on.
Yeah,
You know your way around Australia.
I do, and I've had some of the greatest times of my life down there. Um, I've been, as I was saying to somebody, probably you, I've been sober 37 years, but my first couple of tours in Candy, I was not, and my God, did I have a great time. Um, you know, I don't remember a lot of it. But those were beautiful days in my memory, you know.
Well, you know what they say, Walter, if you remember the 70s, you weren't there.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think I was there.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing you in 2024.
Well, thank you. And thanks for having me on your show, Paul. I appreciate it.